I'm KimBoo, the host of the Author Alchemist podcast. I'm bringing my years of experience as both a fan fiction writer and a professionally published author to the problem we all love to hate, the act of writing. You can't improve on something that doesn't exist, which means the most important thing you can do is simply write. Anything. Just write something. I'm here to help you do that. Welcome back. This is episode 2 of the second season of The Author Alchemist. And to be perfectly honest with you, this is the second time I am recording this podcast. I recorded it a few days ago after work, my day job. We won't go into details. Got home, pulled up my outline because I work from outlines. I don't work from scripts for the podcast. I do have an outline though because I do need some structure in my life. Shocking to me more than anyone else, but it is true. I pulled it up, tried to record it. Y'all, it was a bad experience all the way around. My brain was not on it. I was not following my outline, and when I tried to follow my outline, I was pausing for like 2 minutes before thinking of the word that I wanted to. It was bad. So I deleted that and we're starting over. One of the reasons I wanted to start over is because I thought that podcast with that outline that I had done was actually 2 different podcasts, which was one of the reasons why my brain kept stuttering over it. I think I was trying to talk about 2 different topics and link them together, and they could be linked together, but it wasn't working the way I wanted it to, and I was not mentally on point enough to make it happen in any useful way. I've split apart those 2 topics, and so this episode is actually going to be about writing the story you want to tell, which you'd know if you've seen the title of the episode. I think the underlying topic that is going to be addressed here is the insecurity we feel about not being unique enough. For writers, I think, I shouldn't say for writers, for any creator. It's true with music, it's true with fine art, painting, graphic arts, whatever you want to put in there as an example. But since we're talking about writing and I'm a writer, we're going to stick with writing. We have a lot of examples of very unique voices out there in the world that it's easy to line ourselves up against and find ourselves lacking in some way. It's instinct almost to look at what we want to write and think, that's not good enough. That's not what's selling. That's not what's popular. Especially if you're moving from the fan fiction circles into original fiction, you're going to be concerned that, who's going to read about my original characters as opposed to, the fan fiction characters I've been writing about for years. And we just become lost in this downward spiral of insecurity and end up not writing what we want to write. Which, as you know, if you know me at all, is something I consider to be a tragedy. It really is. It really is. I cannot stress enough that it is important to write the story you want to tell. So there's a couple of issues buried in this. There's the author voice issue and there's reader expectations issues. As far as the author voice issue goes, usually that comes down to not being unique enough, not being skilled enough, not having the talent, not having the creativity. Fill in the blank. I'm sure we've all had some kind of excuse along those lines. And we sit there and we think, hasn't it all been done before? Hasn't this story been told 1,000, 100,000, million times? And yeah, it has. Especially if you're working in a genre fiction where you're writing romance, or you're writing science fiction, or you're writing a mystery, thriller, adventure. We can point to examples of all forms and subgenres and categories within those genres of it's been done before. It has been done before. But that's not the point. The point is that it hasn't been done by you. It's not the what, it's the how. Back in episode 13 of my podcast during the first season, I did a riff on the concept of steal like an artist, which is pretty popular these days as a statement. It originated in before 2010 as I think a Tumblr post. Austin Kleon posted it, eventually turned it into a book. It's a really good book. I do recommend it. Steal Like an Artist. He's got some other good ones too. Ship the Work is another excellent book that I highly recommend to anybody with a creative bent. So you can read that book. You can go back and listen to that podcast. The too long don't read version of it is what sets you apart as a creator, as an author in this case, is your unique voice, your unique writing skills, your unique take on story elements, even if that story, that plot line, those types of characters have been done before. Is the stoic, masculine, handsome swordsman trope ever going to go out of style? Well, it's not for me personally. No, it's never going to go out of style. I will continue to read every version of that character that comes out in the world in every genre. You're not going to create a new trope like that because it already exists. Instead, you're going to create a new take on that character, a new name, a new face, a new adventure, a new purpose, a new mission. And even if those share elements of stories that have come before it, well, that's the nature of creativity. As long as you're not plagiarizing, you're going to be telling your own story in a way that I guarantee you someone out there is going to love. Which brings us to the second part of this, which is the idea that no one will read what we write. I could just end this podcast saying, well, that fear is overblown. Glad I could help you out. Goodbye, the end. To a certain extent, though, that fear is valid if you're trying to write to market, if you're trying to have an agent pick up your book, publisher decide to pay for your book and sell your book, or even if you're self-published and you're just trying to reach a particular audience so that you can make some money from your publications, then it's a concern. I can't say that it isn't. There's a lot of talk and there's a lot of gurus out there who talk about how to market your books and how to write to market. But I'm here to tell you, and I say this based on years of being a reader, being a fan fiction reader, being a science fiction genre reader, being a romance novel reader, is that there will be someone out there who wants to read your story. That's a given. That is not even a question. The real issue that you need to think about is setting your expectations. If you're writing something very niche and very particular for, say, a BDSM audience, then you're going to have to examine your expectations on what you're trying to do by writing and publishing that story. If you're just trying to get it out there in the world to reach those readers, then, my friend, you are going to have a successful career. If your goal is to become a New York Times bestseller list or to become the next great popular author of mainstream media franchises, then that is when you need to sit down and think about what other elements you could exploit to bring in the readers that you need to bring in to have that kind of success. I actually talk about this on my freebie, which I'm going to plug here a little bit, but it's Writing to Market or Not. That's the name of it, Writing to Market or Not. I'm really clever with titles, you can tell. It's geared to fan fiction writers, which if you're listening to this, you're probably already a fan fiction writer or have been for a long time, or maybe even just thinking about it. But in that, I talk about examining your fan fiction to look at what larger genres or larger tropes that might appeal to a wider audience in your original fiction that you are already exploring in your fan fiction. I think a lot of times fan fiction writers look at fan fiction as a genre in and of itself and don't realize that they've been spending a lot of time writing, say, contemporary romance novels just under the guise of fan fiction. I could confidently assure you that anyone who has written a coffee shop AU or a modern AU or a college AU for any show or book has written a contemporary romance. That is what you've done. And you may not think of it that way because you are writing in, say, the Shadowhunters fandom or the Due South fandom or CQL or any number of different fandoms out there, endless numbers. But it's still a contemporary romance. That's what it is. So yes, you can write to market. You just maybe not be aware of that. So if you're interested in seeing more about how I can help you look at your own fan fiction and see the genres that you actually already write in, I encourage you to visit my website and sign up for my email list, which will give you free access to my freebie, Write to Market or Not. I think it's 16 pages. Well, I mean, that's with, the cover and the afterward, but it's got a lot of pages in it, a lot of writing, and a couple of worksheets. So, hey, it's free. Could do worse, right? Could do worse. All right, so I'll stop with that and get back to the topic. There will always be an audience for the story you want to write. I absolutely guarantee you that that is a true fact. I can't guarantee how big that audience is going to be, but it's out there. What you need to come to terms with is sitting down and writing that story. It's not always the easiest thing to do to confront our deepest creative well of energy and follow it where it's wanting to take us. We want to corral it a lot of times. But what sets you apart as an author is your voice, is the story you have to tell. And if you're so busy worrying about what readers want to read, or what you think is acceptable or not acceptable in your genre of choice, then you're not going to tell that story. It's important that you tell that story. Even if it's only just to get it out of your system so that you can go tell other stories, or get a rough draft so that you can massage it and finesse it into something that you feel comfortable releasing out into the world. You got to write it. And isn't that what I always come back around to in these podcasts? It's the idea that you need to sit down and you need to write it. You need to write the story. You need to write the words. And I know there's so many hurdles to that. Time, emotional, mental health, wellness, physical wellness, insecurity, fear, lack of self-confidence. Oh, lack of self-confidence. That's what we're going to be talking about in the next podcast next week. So be looking forward to that. I'm sure we're all going to be looking forward to that. No, nobody's looking forward to that. But I guess, that's what I'm committing to talking about and helping you work with next week. But you got to write it. You got to write. Just telling you, friend, that's how it all happens. That's how the magic happens. That's why I call myself the author alchemist, because making the magic happen is what writing is all about. So write what you love to write what you love to read, and do that first. And then we can come back around and talk about marketing and readership and reader expectations and all those sorts of nitty-gritty things that any number of author people can help you with out there. There's plenty of people out there who can do that. My job is to help you get to the point where you've got something to show them. Okay, so that's it for this week. I don't think I'm going to delete this episode. I might actually post it. Who knows? Get wild, KimBoo. It's Saturday morning. I have a lot of things I need to be doing, but hopefully I'll have this episode up tomorrow on Sunday. We'll know when it gets there, I suppose. In the meantime, check out my website, maybe download the freebie, right to market or not, that I've got there for you. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please give me some stars, give me some follows, anywhere you happen to hear this or read this, and I would appreciate that. Have fun writing. Thanks for listening to me ramble on about writing here on the Author Alchemist podcast. I'm KimBoo York, and I hope this episode has helped clear away the cobwebs from your inspiration. Now, time to get some writing done.